What's good, y'all? Past podcast, doing a late episode. Guess you can call this the podcast after dark. I was kind of in between about doing this podcast. I had a thought that I wanted to share, and for whatever reason, it was attempted to be written on paper, and my attempts of writing it were to no avail. So I decided to kind of hop on it. Since I'm already on the laptop, I'll go ahead and just crack open Audition and get a little bit of a true thought flow going with this, because I feel as though this is something that a lot of people, this kind of, I guess you could say, this kind of adds an unintended layer, or releases an unintended layer when it comes to me with who I am and how I function. Kind of that getting to know who past podcast is offline, and the best way I can describe it is I'm human. But I was able to have a conversation with a friend of mine, and it went into a scenario about me and who I am and how I function. To mildly state the obvious, I'm a thinker. I'm a fixer. I'm a helper. I'm a person who likes to come to a solution or a resolution in a timely / immediate manner. In most cases, that's a good thing, but other times it can kind of be the death of me, meaning that I'm spending more energy trying to come to figuring out what to do instead of taking time and letting the situation fix itself. And it's a hard thing to do, and it's hard. It's so hard. You just don't understand. No, honestly, I would be the first to admit in saying that it's not a flawless or a perfect process, if that's a good way to say it. So I found an article was shared with me that states was called 10 traits empathic people share. Now, empathic means that we are sensitive or have a tendency to be very sensitive people. Let me state this before I continue. Sensitive does not mean that I'm emotional and I'll drop a tear at the drop of a dime. That's not what this means, and that's not how this works. It mainly just kind of entails that when a moment happens or a situation occurs, I place myself in that moment or in the shoes of the person enduring or experiencing the moment. And it doesn't mean that I'm sitting and trying to go out of my way to try to figure out every single piece of every little bit of thing that they need to do. But it's just, well, here are some ways to kind of simplify it and ease yourself through, or withstanding the process or that which you're experiencing. Before we continue, and I always like to make sure I do this within the podcast, even though I'm 3 minutes in. The podcasts are being recorded using a Blue Yeti microphone. Each podcast is being uploaded using the Spreaker app. And I do thank you all for tuning in. Anyone who has been helping any little bit that's been helpful and considerate in getting this movement going, trust and believe every bit and every piece of it is highly appreciated. Tonight, it looks like Logic has won again, because I was able to figure out in a couple of episodes, if you all been hearing static, and this might be something just me kind of getting podcasting 101, and this will probably be a tool tip, and I'm tempted to help in sharing ideas that have worked for me in starting out, because I know I've stated or had a lot of people who have interest in doing podcasts. And I'm sorry, I know this is supposed to be about empathic people, but I wanted to state this before I continue. To look at sharing just little tidbits, like a tidbit that I've recently learned is that when recording or when doing the podcast, my input and my output sources have been the equivalent, which is the microphone, which is a good thing when it comes to if I want to listen to what's been going on, I can listen to it using the microphone. But it's a bad thing because when it comes to actually recording, the listening and the recording kind of are conflicting with one another. That can cause the static feedback, things of that sort. So just a little tidbit, and this is like, more than likely this would be the scenario or the outcome you may run across with other programs or apps such as Logic Pro, GarageBand, and even Audacity. So if you're using those, it's just a helpful tip. Okay, rambling 2 minutes. We're going to return because anyone who knows me knows I can get sidetracked. Okay. So, 10 ways or 10 traits that most people who are empathic they share, and how to look out for yourself if you are one. Because I know, like I said, most of these things are things that I'm working on. So it's things that have been well, some of it's been changing along the way, but some of it is just evident and obvious in who and how I function. Number one, empaths are highly sensitive. So that means that and I'm not even like most of these. I can read this to you and tell you A to Z what it's saying, but I'm gonna just give it to you in the most condensed and direct way because that's me, and that's just my transparency. And the best way that I can describe it, or the best words I can give you, is I have been known to have an open door policy. Open door policy for me means if you need to talk, if you need to text, if I'm available, if I have the ability to address or discuss something, send me a message. Hey, I need to talk. Hey, can you listen for a minute? Or hey, I need some advice. And in some ways, it's a gift and it's a curse. Because a lot of times when you leave that opportunity open, a person just feels like they can come to you and tell you just about anything. And some of it you really don't need to know about or really don't want to know about. Because the worst part of it is you can give someone advice on something and share with them what you think may be a good solution. But in the back of their head, as with most people, they kind of already have in their head what they're planning on doing. It's almost foolproof. I don't know how else to put it, but it's something that can be evidently observed and noticed with some people in their ways. Number two, empaths absorb other people's emotions. So if someone is hurting, you feel their hurt more than they feel their own hurt. And sometimes that can be a great thing. Other times it can become very overwhelming. It can take a mental toll on you because you want to feel nothing but the best for them, but it may not reciprocate in most cases, and this scenario is no exception. If a person's having a good day, you kind of feel like, well, hey, I'm not having too bad of a day either, and it makes you feel good or makes you feel great as a person. But if a person's having an emotional wreck and they're going through a rough patch, their frustration can kind of roll into your frustration, and you're like, I don't want to carry your frustration, and it's not helpful for me. Number three, many empaths are introverted. I've said this before. I'll stick behind it or stand behind it till whenever. I am an introvert with social butterfly tendencies, and I know that probably is going to sound very strange because most of the times when I'm hanging out with people, I'm not the guy who sits and just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and have a drink and just wallow in my pains and my struggles. I am the guy who I'll have my drink, I'll have a good time for myself, and then I try to make sure everyone else either A, is having a good time, or B, most importantly, that they're okay. Because I don't like to, it's just something about me with that. I always like to make sure everybody's good. I like to make sure I'm good too, but most importantly, I like to make sure those who are with me enjoying themselves are having a good time as best as they can based on the circumstance. Number four, empaths are highly intuitive. So it's a gut instinct. They will, if they read something or they see something, it's noticeable and it's addressed, but it's addressed in a very portionate. It's addressed in a very portion-based theory. I know that's probably like a strange way of putting that, but so I'm gonna read this one because it is very short. Empaths experience the world through their intuition. It is important for them to develop their intuition and listen to their gut feelings about people. This helps empaths find positive relationships and avoid energy vampires. The last part of that is what I have been known to run into or come across, which is the energy vampires are those who just drain you to the point of no return, and you just get this huge frustration in your mind, in your soul, in your spirit, to the point where you're like, why is this person in my presence or within my vicinity? My mental is just not able to handle it, and I'm not feeling it. Most times you can kind of do the math and figuring out that it's worth the sacrifice, and other times it's like, if I don't get away from you, I'm not going to be able to function properly in getting through this process. And sometimes it's literally like you have to read, just like people read and feel us out, we have to feel and read other people out in most circumstances without knowing it. So that gut feeling, you can kind of look like, it's almost as though you're in a room with people, and most people kind of tell their story of who they are without saying a word. You can just kind of look at them and say, okay, I'm not judging this person, but I kind of have a pretty generalized / overall idea of who and what this person portrays. Empaths need alone time. I like to get out and I like to do stuff, but if the opportunity exists or the opportunity arises to just relax and chill and just sit and just lounge and enjoy time to myself, I will acknowledge it in a heartbeat. With podcasts being a perfect example, putting the microphone on play and placing my phone on airplane mode and my watch on airplane mode and silent mode, the best feeling ever. And I mean that with a straight face. It's kind of like a hit or miss, because on one hand, if someone sends an email or someone asks me a question, podcasting wise, it's trying to get started, or his, like my friend, my sister, I'm not putting names, I'm hoping she finished her recording because I did give her an assignment. But if she has stuff that she needs help with, I'll be available, like, hey, I'm willing to help you. Right now, kind of being selfish because I'm focusing on my time and my little moment of just kind of knocking out what I need to work on for me to benefit what I'm trying to get done with my brand and with my process. So that alone time makes a huge impact. This is a good one. Empaths can become overwhelmed in intimate relationships. Time and space. I feel as though this is that conversation that people do not understand, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're single, whether you're an empath, whether you're a sociopath. I know a sociopath probably has nothing to do with this, but whether you're a person who enjoys interaction, whether you're a person who needs that time to just chill, intimacy and connection, you want that moment to be with someone and enjoy their time and value being around them and doing things with them. But for that 5 minutes that you have not talked to them, it makes you feel like life is great. And some people don't understand that, because what helps a relationship or what helps a friendship, like my friends now, a lot of them are introverts, and it's like we are cool enough where if I don't hear from them the whole day, I'm not like, well, why you ain't hit me up, or why haven't I talked to you today? It's like, do what you need to do. If you need me or if we need to talk, we can come together and have a convo and just pick up like we talked 5 minutes ago. Prime example, one of my friends who I always give this story. She's known me more than half of my life, and I was able to sit and talk with her and have a conversation. I sent her a message Friday. She didn't respond until yesterday, or today. And she said, I feel bad that I'm just seeing this message. I'm like, it's cool. Some people get those type of messages or that type of conversation, and it's like, well, I mean, I did hit you up. Why didn't you hit me back? And it's like, it's fine. You have a life. Like, you're handling your business. You're working on stuff. I know your routine better than you know your routine. And sometimes that can be a little new to most folks. Being at ease with a relationship, it's mainly just kind of placing that foundation to the relationship and how it's processed. Mentioning it earlier, empaths are targets for energy vampires. People who feel toxic are turnoff to me. And I've known that for a while, but lately acknowledging it and seeing it as a thing that can be fixed and worked on has been the biggest, most worthwhile transition I've experienced. And I don't regret it. I feel as though there are some people who just have anger at all times, and they just don't have anywhere to really outsource it or vent or get it off of their system. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna come to you, and you're the person that's gonna take whatever I have going on. I used to call it, and this is it worked then. Now it doesn't really tie into it, but it still makes sense. I call it the Coca-Cola theory, where you take a person who wears a white T-shirt and you give them a soda. What you don't tell them is that this soda was just shaken up before handed to you. So as soon as that person receives the soda, once they open it, the shirt is pretty much soiled in Coca-Cola. I was about to say Pepsi and ruin that whole theory, and it would have just defeated the whole purpose. Number 8, empaths are replenished in nature. So moments of just and I really think I've learned this the last couple of months, and I think I'm kind of overdue for a moment of it. Well, is a matter of fact, I'll give a dual-based scenario. A few weeks ago, and I'm not sure if this was addressed on the podcast, but if it wasn't, I'll address it now. And I think I did do a podcast while I was out of town. When I went out of town, a matter of fact, I'm transparent. I may as well just be real because most people know anyway. I went to Virginia Beach 2 weeks ago. Matter of fact, today would have been day 2 going into my emotional day of departing from Virginia Beach, and I was didn't want to come back, but blah blah blah, whatever, no problem. But I was in Virginia Beach, and I was in the thought process of let me get up, and it was on Tuesday. Let me get up and go to the beach because a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you may want to." And I was supposed to go do the sunrise, catch sunset. I failed on both because just me being me and not thinking things through. But point being, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the beach and get in a little, kind of lounge out and chill." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I got a lawn chair." So I picked up my lawn chair, sat on the beach for a second. Then I'm like, no, matter of fact, I went to the beach and just walked for a minute. And I'm walking, and I think I had sunglasses, but couldn't find them or didn't know where they were or something. And so I went to this little store, picked up a pair of sunglasses, which I still have. If you've been looking at some social media, you'll probably remember or recall seeing those pictures of the sunglasses of my ensemble of my pop-pop status. But I, walked the beach, and I came back to the room, had the sunglasses, went and got my lawn chair, and went back to the beach, got in the sand, found a nice little area, and just sat. I had my journal, my pen, my fidget cube. I was perfectly at peace with everything. And it was the greatest / sane feeling that anyone who wants that 2 or 3 minutes of just sanity was worthwhile. Telling that story because that was the form of nature that I needed at that time. A couple of weeks ago, nice little walk to on the rocks here near the river. Sit out there, get your speaker, have a power bank to kind of keep electricity charged as needed. Play some music, keep a fan on hand, and just chill. The perfect storm. And that goes back to the nature or the natural aspect of things. Number 9, and I'm sorry, I know that was like a major sidebar, but I thought about that and it just kind of hit home, and it's all accurate thoughts or accurate feelings about that type of an instance. Number 9, empaths have highly tuned senses. Things that shouldn't trigger me listening wise or touching wise, or things that just don't feel well with me, it's noticeable in 10 seconds. My reaction to some of it, like if someone points something out, like I'll give you the legit example for me. I'm a space person, and I didn't realize how much of a space person I was until I got into the current locale of where I am now. Because some people will kind of come when you work certain places. People may come near your area, may kind of stand around and talk, and that's fine. But then some people can kind of come, and it's like, they're in your area and they were uninvited, and you're like, I didn't ask you to come over here. Why are you here? And it's so odd because I'm one of those affectionate, mushy people that's like, I like hugs, I like being close with folks, but I also like when it's a mutual foundation of, okay, we're going to do this. All right, cool. We're going to hug it out. We're going to talk it out. Cool. No problem. No big deal. But when it's that unplanned sense, it picks up and it's felt, and you're like, why are you in my space and I didn't invite you? Like, don't, just respect me. It's all I ask. But yeah, nerves can be frazzled or just distraught by any type of noises or smells or excessive talking, just to name a few senses. And number 10, and last but not least, and this is probably going to take up the most of the podcast, and I'm going to not be long-winded, but I already have by being 20 minutes in with this thought. But empaths have huge hearts, but sometimes give too much. 2017 was a year of learning something that I never learned or never realized for the past 34 years. Or 33 years, however you want to term it. And that is, you can give all the time in the world to anyone else. You can help everyone around you get everything that they need to get accomplished. But if you're not doing anything or working on anything productive or worthwhile for yourself, then it makes the process or delays the process even more. It makes the process challenging, and it delays the process with no qualms and no concerns whatsoever. I'm gonna give you what has worked for me, and I always say this. I try not to give names and tell most of you all who know me know my name off podcast, so I'm okay with that. But BT has to be sure that BT is important. At any point when I don't feel that I matter to myself, and I'm mattering more to others and what they're doing, and leaving myself with nothing, it's going to show. And with no exception, I was learning that I was doing more of the giving and not enough of the receiving towards myself and providing myself what I deserve or what belongs to me. Perfect observation of this was a few years I would be so open to, let me do this, let me drop what I'm doing and get this done, let me get this done, let me get this taken care of, I'm gonna work on this and I'm gonna make sure I got this taken care of for this person, and I got them covered, I got you covered, I'm gonna work on this for you. And while I'm doing all of these things for all of these people, it's not even about whether they did anything for me. Yay, noise. It was, what was I doing for myself to make sure I was at peace? And the true answer was nothing. And there's my fidgeting for the day. The true answer was nothing. I don't sit and look for any blame. I don't look for any pity. I don't look for any sorrow for that, because that was all my decision and my choice and my accountability staring me right in my face. So I gave a lot. I still feel those moments of giving, and what may or may not have been earned from doing so is neither here nor there now, obviously. But this year was the learning curve of, okay, it's time for me to be put first, and that meant taking days just because, and that meant taking time to just relax and enjoy something. That meant working on things such as the podcast. That meant taking little steps to kind of give the blog a little bit of a fine tune to what I would like to write about in case I don't feel like podcasting, which is very rare. But it made me focus and channel energies the right way. And a few weeks ago, the trip was kind of like the tell-all be-all and saying, all right, I've enjoyed what I've done with everyone, but let me just have a day to myself. And if I feel like answering the phone, I'll answer the phone. If I feel like being sociable on social media, then I'll be sociable on social media. I was very quiet, and a lot of people didn't know what was going on. I didn't post a lot of quotes. I was intentionally selfish. And looking back on it, I'm okay with that. I don't have any regrets about it, or as the Snickers commercial called it, no regrets. But I truly had to learn how that was. Like, the theory that they give in the breakdown they state is, when you see a homeless person holding a cardboard saying I'm hungry at a busy intersection, a hurt child, a distraught friend, it's like, okay, I gotta go and help them. Some moments it's like you can't help those who don't want to be helped. Some people need more help than you're even able to attempt to provide for them. You have to let people go through what they go through sometimes, and it can be considered as the most tough love possible, but it can also be the one thing that can help them get through their situation or their circumstance better than they realize sometimes. So I know that talking about 10 of these 10 traits would take a while, but I didn't realize it would take as long. But I also wanted to kind of get this out, and I was on the fence because, like I said, I was looking to do this as a blog, but for whatever reason, and I'm just kind of learning that I guess me and my, and this is going to be the most random matrimony, but it's a true statement. My Blue Yeti microphone and my Samsung stand that I used with my previous Meteor, which I always cry about every once in a while when I think about that microphone. But just sitting and getting this set up and just sitting here and talking about this is just what I wanted to do. And if I have not told anyone, I'm going to do this as a closeout plug, because I did promise I would mention this. I told y'all, I love writing. I love blogging. I'm journaling, getting back to journaling again more frequently. Was supposed to do some today, but things happen, life happens, you know how it goes. But the year in review this year will be the first year, and I'm announcing this now, so anyone who is listening, take note, be prepared. You'll want to tune in, or there's a high possibility I may do that podcast live. But I am going to do my year-end review as a podcast. Whether it's live or not is still debatable, but I am going to certainly enjoy sharing what I've experienced this year. There has been a lot to think about and to address. The outline is going to be ridiculous, but the storyline is going to be popping, and I'm going to love every minute of it. Yes, I did say popping. My lip gloss is popping. My lip gloss is cool. So thank you all for listening. I truly can only be one person, and that's me. Y'all thought I was gonna mess it up and tell my name. Most of y'all, if you've gone back, if you listened to like early episodes of my podcast, you know my name, so it's not a big deal. But those of you who have hung around and have been listening or have learned something from what I've shared, I do appreciate it. Best believe it does not go unnoticed at all. So leave you there. Thank you all for checking out the podcast. Believe it or not, I'm gonna record this and just post it as is. There will not be an intro and an outro, because I did learn from listening to my intro, and I'll state this too. The intro is done, or the intro and the outro is done based on the weekly podcast, not daily podcasts like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all the close-up personal podcast after dark closing. If you are a new listener, continue listening. If this is your repeat offense, glad you came back. There will be more shows like these done more frequently. Until next time, this is the Past Podcast signing out. Y'all take it easy.